Welcome back to Black Belt Tips. Today, we're talking about the Blue Belt Blues. See you in a minute. Yeah, welcome back. I am Bill Jones, black belt under Master Pedro Sauer in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. With me, my friend, my co-host, slightly better than novice in all things, Mr. Edward Whitney, blue belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So you're an expert on this subject.
Yeah, I've watched a lot of friends vanish. We got our blue belts, and I look back, and they were gone.
That's interesting. That's interesting.
It's hard to understand.
So I'll try to describe what the Blue Belt Blues is.
Okay.
And maybe you can tell me if I'm right or wrong.
Okay.
I'm going to be honest, it's been a while for me. I earned my Blue Belt in 2006. And, it's been a while. But I do remember some of it. So the Blue Belt Blues, that's it can mean a couple different things, really. But in general, what it's speaking about is the blue belt maybe not feeling like they're learning, or some reason, for some way, somehow they get that blue belt, and within a rather short period of time, disappear, gone. And so the question is, what causes it? Maybe you're part of it. Are you guys feeling that? Have you been through it? What causes it, and what can you do to get through it? I guess that's the other big thing.
Yeah.
Just so you guys know, Ed's touching my leg under the table. It's a little uncomfortable.
It's a little awkward. So if I look like I'm squirming, I'm running from his leg.
Oh, he moved. Feels better now.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Again, if I were more professional, I'd edit that right out. We're not going to do that.
That's not going to happen.
We're real here.
Keeping it real.
All right. Legs are no longer touching. We're good to go.
Yeah, so in my opinion, I think the Blue Belt Blues are two separate things.
Okay.
There's for the people who stay, there's that feeling of, I'm not getting better, this white belt choked me, you know what I mean? And then also there's the Blue Belt Blues, where people just, they feel like they achieved that blue belt, and then
Houdini, I'm done.
I think part of with that one is the people equate a blue belt in jiu-jitsu to a black belt in other martial arts.
Which, by the way, not a bad equation, but...
No, but you are not done, though.
No.
Whereas when you get a black belt in a lot of martial arts, that means you have a pretty good understanding. Whereas blue belt in jiu-jitsu, you're just starting to scratch the surface. Are you doing that on purpose?
Doing what?
The uncomfortable stare?
I was listening to you, man.
Okay.
No, so I do agree. Like, and for viewers, maybe if this is the first time watching, I have black belts. I have 4 official black belts and several teaching certifications in various martial arts. So the black belt, what it's supposed to mean in other martial arts and what it actually means in American culture are two different things. Let's understand that first.
Okay.
Because the black belt in most other cultures, literally, it is called shodan, and shodan means first level.
Mm.
So, we think of it as black belt. Yeah, they're thinking of it as, oh, good job, you made it through kindergarten to the first grade. It's time to actually start learning how to add and subtract and divide. And all. That's how most of the cultures that have, quote, created these and started implementing those belts thought of them at the time of implementation. Like, that's how Professor Jigoro Kano, who created the belt system that every martial art uses these days, and it's not even that old of a system.
Really?
It was created in the early 1900s. He created that system, and his thought was, okay, well, these judo practitioners, because that's what it was judo, they know the basics of judo, and if I needed to put them with a buddy who didn't know anything, that'd be a good person to put him with, is this guy who has this black belt on. And at the time, anyway, they looked a little different. That's a completely different discussion. But, they wore a black belt to signify that they were at the first level. But then there were other levels of black belt. And then a lot of people were like, hey, we like this system. It's kind of easy to follow. It makes sense, so we're going to do it too. And the black belt, like for example in Taekwondo, people badmouth Taekwondo all the time because they have black belts and it only takes a couple years to get. If you go to Korea, it only takes a year to get a black belt. In many organizations, because black belt isn't the pinnacle; it's the start.
And in that mindset, I would equate blue belt to that. That's a good comparison.
Yeah, because blue belt, you know the basics. I can look at you, you speak the language. I can say, hey, do an omoplata. You know what an omoplata looks like. But if I said, hey, show me 15 setups for an omoplata, you're going to be like, well, I got
three.
Like 2.
Yeah, 2, 3, yeah.
You know, unless that's your specialty. You know, so that's kind of why the blue belt and the black belt, in my mind, are very, very much the same. The blue belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and the black belt in many other martial arts. And they, depending on the art, they can take about the same amount of time to get, depending on the instructor, that kind of thing. I would say maybe our blue belt at top level martial arts takes about 1.5 years to get, and that's a little faster than black belts in most other places. But I would still equate the knowledge. I'd still put my blue belt up against a black belt any day. So, you know, not to do a this versus that, but that's just I will. Yeah. I'll say it. You know, so it's true.
So, what do you think causes people to leave when they get that blue belt?
Well, I think you bring up a great point in comparing it to the black belt, because, and if you notice, like in classes that I teach, I very rarely ever talk about other martial arts or compare that belt. This is probably the first time in your presence I've ever really truly gotten that in depth with that kind of comparison.
Yeah.
And the reason I do that is because I don't want it to feel like an end. I don't want people to think, oh, well, that's the same as a black belt, so I'm good. You know. Yeah. But because it takes so long to get, 1.5 years, which, as a black belt, someone who's been training since 2004 in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, it doesn't seem like a very long time. You know, I still look at that person as an infant. I can, we made that comparison before, that rolling someone new is like, it's like fighting an infant. And like, to me, like a new blue belt is still pretty much an infant. Like, I can still go, hey, look at you, you're so cute, and throw you around. But to you, as the person who's earned the blue belt, that's like a significant amount of time, right? Like, I think it's easy for me to downplay how much time and effort goes into, and sacrifice goes into earning a blue belt. You know, like a lot of people, you give up family time, and you do all these things, and it's like, man, how long can I keep this up? And I think that starts going through people's heads, and they start making decisions. It's almost like when January 1st comes around, all of a sudden, the gyms fill up, right?
Yeah, right.
Because people are reevaluating things and making new decisions. And I think that when people earn their blue belt, that's their martial arts time to reevaluate things and make decisions. And I think that's why a lot of blue belts disappear.
The other thing I think is the amount of time it takes to earn a purple belt. Because, all that time you just described for blue belt, you got to multiply that by like 2, 3, maybe 4 times to get that purple belt.
Yeah.
And I think they feel that overwhelmed feeling.
Well, and it's funny because, people ask me, and I would argue that maybe this is a fundamental difference between the type of person who will quit at blue belt and the type of person who will continue to black or whatever, is that my phone just beeped. It's okay. It's cool.
No edit.
No edit. Not going to edit it out. Not going to do that. The type of person who does that is that it never crossed my mind to quit at blue belt. Like, it was never even a consideration.
Yeah, me either.
But I'll also say this. I've been training martial arts since I was 5 years old, so it's never crossed my mind to quit martial arts in general. And the one time it did, my mom basically put the smack down on it and said, you are freaking crazy. You're a national champion. You're not quitting.
I think you actually told that story on the podcast.
Maybe.
Yeah, go back and find that one.
Yeah. So, but by the time I got to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, it never crossed my mind. It was like, well, of course I'm going to earn a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Like, it might take, I always wondered how long it would take me, but I knew I was going to do it.
Yeah, I'm the same way. It was just foreign to me, the thought of quitting. I mean, unless my body decides that I can't do it.
Right. I mean, that was the consideration because, after the war, I came up with ulcerative colitis, which gave me some problems. Work, things like that. Am I going to be able to make the time for it? What do I do when I get a real job? Because I was still in college at the time when I started. How am I going to make time for it? And those kinds of things I've had to adjust for. But I've always been able to do that, and not just been able to, but just made the time for it. I made it a priority in my life. It was interesting. My wife and I were sitting talking the other day, and one of the things, I forget how it came up, and she's like, well, what would you have said if I would have told you to quit? And I said, well, I would never have married you. Like that. That means, like to me, like martial arts is a part of my life. It's part of who I am. If you want me to quit that, you don't want me. You want somebody who doesn't do martial arts, and I'm sorry, it's not me. Like that would have just been the end of our relationship.
Yeah.
and it was as simple as that. So for me, it's very foreign. It's very, just the concept of quitting things that you're good at and that you want doesn't make sense. But I suppose, and I truly believe this, if you want success, that's the kind of mindset you have to have. You have to have the mindset that you're going to do it. You're just going to do it, whatever it takes. You're going to figure it out. So anyway, back to the reasons that people quit.
Yeah, no, I thought that was great.
Okay.
Yeah, you were right on track.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I didn't want to get too philosophical.
Too much of a tangent.
Too mumbo jumbo.
I thought you did great.
Too meta with that.
Yeah. What are some other reasons you can think of why people quit?
I think that jiu-jitsu and learning jiu-jitsu, you expect, any learning process, and I shouldn't say any, but a lot of learning processes are like this line, right? Like just starts here, here's zero knowledge, here's all the knowledge, and you just continuously progress towards all the knowledge, right? That's not jiu-jitsu. And I mean, even all the knowledge of anything, let's just assume that that's an impossibility, and everybody realizes that. They know they're not going to be like the source of all knowledge, right? But they're going to, continuously go up toward that knowledge. And I would say that learning curve, maybe it trends that way, and
the overall trend.
Yeah, maybe it trends that way, but it definitely doesn't go that way. Like it is hills and valleys and peaks, and I mean it's a pain in the ass. It is a total pain. It is so hard.
Yeah, I think we're getting into the other half of the blue belt blues with this.
Yeah.
The other reason you start not having the success that you envisioned right away. And I was actually talking to somebody the other day saying that a lot of the times, like a 3 or 4 stripe white belt is just as dangerous as a new blue belt, even more so sometimes. And the reason being is once you get to blue belt, you kind of slow down and just start doing jiu-jitsu. Mm-hmm. Whereas when you're, still a white belt, you got that adrenaline rush and you're just going for it, you know what I mean? So I think a lot of it has to do with they're not seeing the success as immediate as they had hoped. Like they get the blue belt and they're ninja. Like that's how you picture it in your head. Mm-hmm. That is not the case.
Well, I mean, to something that a lot of people I don't think realize is the same thing happens at every single belt.
Oh yeah.
The difference is by the time you get through blue belt, you expect it at purple, you expect it at brown, you expect it at black, and it continues. Like people watch me. Somebody once, I was watching a really good wrestler do takedowns, and I was like, wow, that guy moves amazing. And someone looked at me and said, you realize that's how people see you, right? And I said, what are you talking about? And he's like, that's how people see you when you're doing jiu-jitsu. They think you look just that amazing. Yeah. And I'm like, well, I guess I didn't consider that. Because, it looks effortless. These things look effortless, but they are complete effort.
Yeah, oh yeah.
It's never effortless.
It's hours and hours amount of time.
I mean, just because it looked easy for me doesn't mean it was. I mean, the leverage is correct and all that stuff, but let's be honest, no lever works. If I want this phone to move, just because I put my finger here and create a fulcrum at the table doesn't mean anything until I put the effort to push it over. And it's the same way for anything. Just because I know where to put the levers doesn't mean that there's not an effort getting them there, that there's not an effort applying to them
to engage them
and following through on them. It's all effort all the time, and I think people expect that to go away at some point. I think they expect to earn a blue belt, and all of a sudden all the white belts become babies to them. And it's like, and the other thing is going. Well, I'll stick with that, but it just doesn't happen that way. Yeah, it just doesn't happen that way. It's always going to be an effort, and I mean we're getting older. We're not getting any younger, so that effort is going to have to change. You're going to have to change the way you do things, whether you mean to or not. Pedro Sauer was talking to us during a training certification class, and he's 58, I think, at the time of this recording, and so he was talking about how he is now where Helio Gracie, the founder of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, was at the time that Pedro met him. Wow. And what that did, what Pedro's realizing is that, yes, Pedro's one of the most technical human beings on earth, voted so by other highly technical people. It's not like a bunch of schmoes voted him that way. That was at the Abu Dhabi Combat Club that voted him one of the most technical instructors on earth. Actually, they voted him the best of technical instructors. I mean, literally. And what he's realizing now is that he wasn't as technical as he could have been. Wow. And he's adjusting things and changing things because he's getting older, and he realized, I was using maybe just a little bit of muscle there. And it probably, I mean, the guy's not that big.
He's not a giant.
But, I mean, he's adjusting things even today. to apply and keep the idea of this lever going properly. But it's adjustments that you can't make until you lose the ability to do what you were doing.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You know, like you're never going to... I'm a 250-pound man. I say it all the time. I know for a fact that there are places in my game where I am probably using muscle that I shouldn't, but I have no way of knowing it until someone either exposes that hole, you know, and says, "Oh, you were trying to use muscle there." Like they realize it, and they're able to beat it, or I don't have it anymore. That's when I'll be able to fix it, you know, because I won't know. I look for it, I try to find it, but I'm sure it's happening in places I don't recognize. You know, and that's coming from a black belt. I've been a black belt for 4 years now. At the time of this recording, 2017. You know, I mean, I've been. You know,
I remember your fresh, crispy black belt when I first started.
Yeah. So, but my point is, you know, it's gonna happen. You know, so you're gonna have to put the effort in. The effort is always going to be there.
Do you have any tips on how to prevent those feelings? Anything you can think of that might?
Well, I think understanding that the trend is there,
okay,
and that the learning curve is there is a lot of it. You know, like we had a young man who was here, real nice young man, but he quit because he felt like he wasn't getting any better. And, you know, I said, well, you know, that's fine. You know, I don't argue with people when they quit, but you know that's fine that you feel that way. I said, but you know, how do you do with the people who are brand new? Oh, I do great with them. Well, there's how you prove you're getting better. Like, it's not how you do with the blue belts and the black belts. You know, they're trending with you.
Yeah, that's...
You know, like, if you start here at zero knowledge, and I start here at black belt,
and we move the same
and you
speed.
move here, and I'm still moving, you know, like...
You're not going to catch
Or even if you move here, and I move there, that's the other thing that I don't think the curve takes into account, is how much small differences make in the overall application of technique. So... while this white belt is moving from, you know, this far on the line of learning things, and I might only move this far because I only learned 2 new things, it might take my skill level, a new trend now, a new graph, right? So white belt moved this far on learning things, but white belt's skill level on the new graph only moved this far. I learned this one little thing, and my skill level moves this far. Does that make sense?
It makes 100% sense.
Because what I learned was very profound.
Yeah, very.
Whereas this person's still trying to understand
the basics.
What the heck the technique's even trying to do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I can learn this little detail and apply it to every technique. And so, like, people don't understand that.
Yeah.
People don't get that that's what happens. That you and I can look at the exact same technique, learn the exact same technique in the same day, and it can profoundly influence my entire way of doing jiu-jitsu while you're still just trying to sweep somebody.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
It did nothing for me.
And I think understanding that that's possible will help you.
Okay.
And then I think also understanding that the going back to the original trend that we were talking about of I should have like a whiteboard here.
Yeah, maybe.
You know, because right now it's just fingers in the air.
Yeah, you're just doing this.
Okay. So, you know, and if you don't know, if you're not good at line graphs or whatever, this podcast is lost on you. I'm sorry. And, you know, when we convert this to an MP3 and put it on iTunes, you guys are really lost. So anyway.
To describe what he did.
Yeah. We're going to have to get like a narrator.
Went up a little bit. The black belt went up a lot.
Using the talent of mime,
yeah.
Bill has described. So anyway, the other thing about this trend line that we need to understand is that going from the bottom left of the graph for our listeners tuning in, you know, the white belt might move, you know, upward on the trend line at a very steep angle. Okay, and the blue belt. So let's say that the 7 inches of movement is. I can't edit that out, but we'll just go with it. That this direction is, you know, that's how much the white belt learns between white and blue. Okay, the blue belt's line is much more flat.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, and moreover, the blue belt's line, in my opinion, has more dips in it. You know, they're not learning it again. This is just the trend line, but the actual line looks more like. Okay, I made it to purple. You know, like it's like, you know, you ever see those those big trucks that they build to drive over those giant rocks
yeah.
and stuff.
Yeah.
Like that's to me is like the learning curve in jiu-jitsu. It's like, whoa, boom, boom,
Yeah.
boom. Oh, I made it. Thank God. You know, I need those big. And I think actually that might be one of the best analogies I've ever used for learning jiu-jitsu, because that's how it feels sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
You feel like you watch that truck, and you see those tires on the rock, and they're moving like, you know, on like an 80-degree incline. You're like, how is this guy even going up this thing? And like, but they make it to the top, and then it's like, oh, I'm there.
Made it.
And that's kind of how jiu-jitsu works, you know. Like you're trying your triangle choke. Triangle choke's a weakness for me. I'm not very good at it. So I mean, I'm a black belt in jiu-jitsu. I'm okay at it.
Yeah, you're getting pretty good at it.
But you know, my point is, if we had to like grade my triangle choking ability, I'd put it at probably a purple belt, maybe a brown belt. So one of my brown belts, who I feel has black belt triangles, helps me out a lot with them.
Yeah.
And by the way, that's another important thing to understand in jiu-jitsu, is just because you're a certain belt doesn't mean you can't learn from another belt. Whole different discussion.
Yeah.
But it is relevant to this. You know, so this curve I'm doing to try to get up to this black belt level triangle is so steep for me, very steep. And you know, it doesn't help that you know who comes after me 100%.
Everybody.
Everybody.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't know anybody who doesn't.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
You know, so like, I have to do this against everybody, 100% resisting all the time.
Yeah.
You know, while I'm just trying to learn the basics of this move. You know, really understand it, and you know, whereas some others try to get. You know, like when somebody else is trying to work on a triangle and they're rolling me and I know they're trying to work on a triangle, I pretty much just let them get a triangle.
Yeah.
You know, like...
You don't get that out. You don't get that benefit.
No.
None.
Not at all.
Zero.
And that's fine.
Yeah, same.
That's what I get for earning a black belt.
Don't expect
me
to do it
That's
for
my
you.
reward.
I'm not going to do it for you.
So, you know...
Well, I got a little blue belt tip.
Okay.
It works for me anyway. Stop comparing yourself to others.
Mm-hmm.
Don't chart your path.
Isn't this a common thread? Haven't you said that before? I believe in the confidence.
Maybe.
Yeah, when
Maybe.
we were talking about confidence, stop comparing yourself to others.
Yeah. Chart your path of progression based on yourself. Where did you start from and where are you at now? Not because, we got some young guys around here. You know Chris, little guy.
Yeah. Chris is going to dominate one day.
Yeah, he's like 20 years old, super athletic, trains really hard, and he kicks my butt on a regular basis. And he's only a 4-stripe white belt, you know, so I could let my ego get destroyed.
4-stripe white belt.
Isn't he?
Yeah, he is. But yeah.
Oh,
at the time of this recording.
Yeah, at the time of this recording. Very soon to be blue belt.
Super skilled guy.
Yeah, and so if I compared my progression to his, I'd be failing miserably.
Mm-hmm.
Because he came in, 8 months ago, and he's every bit as good as me.
He's
if
actually
not
been
better.
training well over a year now.
Okay, but you get the...
He had to take some time off for a broken finger.
Oh, that's right.
For anybody who needs to know Chris's business.
Yeah. Chris, we're just talking about you because you're awesome, man.
We love you.
Yeah,
it's all out of love.
Don't take it the wrong way. But, if I compared my progress to his, I would feel like I was failing miserably. But now if I look back and compare my progress to where I was a few years ago, I'm doing great.
Yeah. And
you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that's a great thing to say. And, Henry Akins wrote about I believe it was Henry Akins. I'm almost positive it was Henry Akins, and it's been around the internet forever. And if I'm wrong on who it was, you know what? Get mad and write in the comments below about how wrong I am. So he wrote about watching a brown belt test that Rickson Gracie was putting on, and basically it came down to there were some people that Henry Akins didn't think should earn a brown belt, and Rickson promoted them, and he pretty much said the same thing as you did. Mm-hmm. He pretty much said, listen, that guy is the best, brown belt he's going to be. That's him. That's where he's at.
Physical
that's
limitations, age, and...
Yeah, I mean, he's taking a lot of different things into account. And remember, jiu-jitsu is not like sumo. I almost asked, does anybody know what sumo's like? I'll wait for an answer. All right, so, it's not like sumo. Sumo, do you know anything about sumo?
A little bit.
So, like, sumo, you get, and I don't remember all the names for all these things, but, basically you and I would compete, right? And we'd compete our way up to world champion. And there's ranks, though, like that. Those are actual ranks, like a master and a grandmaster,
yeah.
and there's words for it and stuff.
Yeah.
Once you can't win anymore, you are no longer a grandmaster. You're now a whatever else. There's a completely different, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
So it's almost like when we say, okay, that guy's the world champ, and then he loses, and it's like, okay, well, now that person's the world champ. You know, and I think a lot of people look at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu that way. Like, oh, well, that's a black belt. You know, oh, well, you know, so that means you should be able to beat everybody. Well, maybe, but probably not. You know, like, it's probably not true. So I mean, a black belt's a very tough human being. Like, I've never met a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu that I thought was just a complete pushover and wimp of a human being.
No.
You know, it's just
making it through the grind would indicate that you're not a wimp.
Yeah, you know,
the things that go through on the path to black belt.
Yeah. So anyway, where were we? We're talking about, you know, the blue belt blues, right? So so I think you said something earlier that I wanna circle back to.
Okay.
Which was, you finally get your blue belt. You made it through the grind of white belt. You know, however long that takes at your academy or whatever.
1 year, 2 years, 3
Yeah,
years.
I mean, I know people who've been white belts for 4 years that train regularly. That's just how their academy is. Whatever. I'm not judging. I don't care.
Mm-hmm.
And you finally make it, and then you say, okay, now it's going to be another 4 or 3 or whatever years to purple belt. You know, for us, the average path from white to blue is about 1.5 years, maybe 2 years. The average, you know, blue to purple, now you're looking at like 3. You know, 3.5 maybe.
Yeah.
And you know, you start evaluating that. Is that something I want to continue to do? Is my body going to put up with it? Is you know, and you know, again, completely new podcast subject as far as, you know, is the body going to put up with it? And we're going to do one, guys. You make sure you tune in for that. We're going to do one talking about injuries and working through injuries and how to train, you know, when you're injured and what to do. Speaking of which, show me your foot. This guy.
Broken ankle.
Broken ankle. You gonna quit?
No.
All right. Well, there you go.
No.
So.
No.
You know, he's like, of course not.
I almost sweared. I almost cussed.
So, you know, like, where was I going with that? Oh yeah, circling back. So they do this evaluation and say, you know, is this what I'm willing to go through to get a black belt or to get a purple belt or whatever? And my first real goal, and it's going to sound so stupid, the first book about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu I ever read was by Hoyler and Renzo Gracie. It's called Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu Theory and Technique. Really good opening section about Jiu-Jitsu. And you know, the technique section, I think these days, the techniques are fine, but it's not, I mean, they're all like let me put it this way. When I was coming through karate, all the textbooks were completely black and white, and the pictures, like, there was a picture of a guy here, and then the next picture of him was, like, here. And it's like, well, what did he do to go from those? You know, it was like, you don't see it. So imagine I'm here, close your eyes, and then open them, and now I'm here. And it's like, okay, well, what magic happened that put me from there to there? And what's even happening? You know, like, so you had no idea what was going on.
Yeah.
And, you know, you were supposed to learn from that. Well, you weren't supposed to learn from it, but you
tried.
You tried, right?
Yeah.
Whereas when you look at the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu books, for the most part, they're super high-quality pages. They're all bright colors, and they're detailed explanations of what's going on, you know? So, like, by that standard, it was a really good book.
Yeah.
If you look at it now, the books are even better now. Like, you buy, like, an Eddie Bravo book or a Marcelo Garcia. They're color-coded. It's like, here's the path, you know. By the way, this position also leads to the yellow section. Start there, and you go there, and it's like a... You know, it's like arrows pointing, like, this is exactly what happens next, you know, like, and if he does this, go to page 37, boom, holy crap, you know, and it just builds. They're amazing books that people are putting out, very high quality. But the beginning section of it, I'm a huge person on, I love the history, I love the theory of it, I love reading about jiu-jitsu. And it had a really good opening section, and one of the things it talked about, circling back to the reason I even brought it up, was purple belt. And you know, it basically skimmed through, you know, okay, it said kind of what we just did about white belts and blue belts, but it said about purple belt that most people who make it to purple belt end up making it to black belt. And so my very first goal in jiu-jitsu, while I always wanted to get a black belt, my first goal was to get to purple belt, because like I felt like that meant that I would probably get a black belt. If I could get that far, I'd probably do it. And I think that's what most people do, is they look at it and they look at that purple belt as the next goal, and they're like, nope, can't do it.
It's funny, that was actually the first thing you ever said to me, where I was like, oh, me and this guy have something in common. When you told me that, I was like, yeah, that was the exact same motivation for me. Yeah. If I make it to purple belt, I'm in that percentage. Mm-hmm. That was funny to me.
Probably going to make it to black belt.
I remember you saying that, and I was like, oh.
And I think it's just because of the amount of time. You know, to get to purple belt, I'd say for the average person is 5 to 6 years of training. And if you're able to put aside 5 to 6 years of your life and dig into it and make that commitment for 5 to 6 years, you can probably make that commitment for the rest of your life. You've probably decided that that's something worth your time forever. And I think that's what it really comes down to, because for a year, 2 years, even 3 years, which is, by the way, that's about how much it takes to get from white to blue belt in most academies, anywhere between 1 and 3 years. And, that's about what it takes to get to a black belt in karate or taekwondo or Aikido Jiu-Jitsu or most martial arts. In other martial arts, about 1 to 3 years. Well, not one. One's pretty rare, but like two and a half, 3 years. And by the way, if I'm wrong and your school doesn't do that, be mad at me. Write it below. And if I'm right, write that below too. Comment below. So, like, that's an average amount of time for, I would say, almost any activity. Like, I'm going to do softball, and you do a couple seasons of softball, and then you're done. And I'm going to do basketball, and you do a couple seasons of basketball, and then you're done. Because these are difficult activities. But if you're willing to take that as extra couple years, those 3, 5, 6 years, it's just like in that amount of time in karate, you'd probably be like a 2nd degree black belt or a 3rd. And the same thing in karate and those things. If you make it to like 3rd degree black belt in karate, you're probably going to make it to your 5th and 6th and all those things because you've made the time for it.
Yeah, it's part of your life now.
It's the same thing in jiu-jitsu. It stops being a hobby and starts being a lifestyle.
Yeah. Which
is another huge thing about jiu-jitsu, is it's very much a lifestyle for people. I think we talked about that a little bit in our last podcast about gear.
Yeah.
So I mean, have we answered the question? I don't think we really answered the question why blue belts quit. I think we gave some ideas.
Yeah, I don't think there is necessarily a cut and dry answer. I think the ones we covered are definitely, that won't get edited out either.
No, not at all.
But I think the ones we hit on are definitely the leading candidates anyway. Because like I said, I don't know that there is for sure a correct answer, because I'm sure everybody's a slightly different reason.
Yeah, I just wish they didn't do it. I mean, that's the hard part from an instructor standpoint, and I'll put this out there too. I think we're running a little long, but that's okay. From an instructor standpoint, every person who walks through my doors, I develop some sort of relationship with.
It's tough sometimes.
And like, I know people who I would have put money on this table and said that person, they're going to make it. And then they don't. And a lot of times, the worst part for the instructor, they don't even tell you why.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think most people have an appreciation for how much we care as instructors. Like, they're just like, screw that guy.
Bye.
Yeah, and I don't know how you can write something out. You've known this person for 2 years, and you're not even going to say goodbye at least.
Yeah.
I guess that would be my thing, is if you're a blue belt and you're about to quit, if you're anybody and you're about to quit, unless the person's been a prick to you or something, say goodbye.
Yeah, I had a guy.
Say, hey man, this is why. This is, my wife and I, we want to have a kid, or whatever the reason is. I just don't want to do it anymore. Say goodbye.
Yeah. I had a guy I went completely through white belt all the way to blue belt with. We were buddies. Talked to him, a couple times a week. We got our blue belts, and I haven't talked to that guy since.
No.
Just poof.
You blew him off.
No, definitely not. I don't do that to anybody. I'm not that guy.
Just disappeared.
Just basically gone. Got that blue belt and vanished from my life altogether. From the academy, everything.
Which is crazy.
Yeah, it's like
you would think that, like, because you develop all these relationships and stuff, you'd think that they'd say bye to somebody,
something.
They just disappear.
Yeah, like, hey, it's not working out for me. My body can't do it, or this, or that, or this. Just...
Strange.
You got anything to add?
I don't think so right now. I mean, I think we've gone through a lot of stuff. Basically, I think the two things that you said at the beginning are the main reasons. People either decide they don't want to commit to it, or what was the other one? I can't even remember now.
Getting beat up.
Oh yeah, they're getting
the butt kicking. Yeah,
they can't take the grind.
The ego smash.
So I mean, those are the main reasons, and hopefully, just I guess my goal with this podcast is to help you through that.
Yeah.
I hope that you can help me speak properly later in life. Because I keep messing up words.
You're fine.
No, but I mean, I hope that just knowledge that you're not the only person going through that, you're not the only person feeling that way, can help you stick with it if it's what you want. Now, if you evaluate your goals and you say, I don't want a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, well,
That's pretty good.
You made it. You made it. Good job. You know, I don't know what else to tell you. But if you're a person who wants it and you just don't know how to get through the grind, just know that everybody's going through that grind. Not just you, other blue belts, other purple belts, black belts, brown belts, probably coral belts. Master Sauer's going through it right now, trying to figure out new ways to do the moves that he always did. You know, everybody's doing it. And I would argue, guys, that that's what life is. You know, that's why, you know, we always say jiu-jitsu will change your life, because it will give you an outlook that you don't have to give up on things that you want. You know? So.
To summarize, if you're a blue belt, don't quit.
Stop quitting.
Quit being a quitter.
Start stopping.
Yeah.
Stop being a quitter.
Or, yeah.
Because you don't want to quit.
Yeah, because you got to quit being a quitter.
Yeah. We should probably cut this section out. We sound like idiots right now. Guys, I really appreciate you tuning in. Give us a thumbs up if you liked us. If you didn't like us, I don't know. I guess you could put a thumbs down. I'd prefer you not to.
Or just comment below and tell us what you didn't like. That'll work better for us. Yeah.
Any other questions? Anything?
I think we're good, man.
Guys, thanks a lot.
We're
out.
Defense. And does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And it actually gets into a point that I tend to make every time I talk about the differences between, I'll say, effective martial arts and martial arts that maybe don't focus on the effectiveness